Tom Downey here once again for Titans Today, a feature-length video, at least, more than the 4 minutes we did last time on today's show, as we break down some surprise Titans cut candidates following this year's NFL draft. Now, Tennessee doesn't need the cap space or even technically the roster spots. They have the money and an open roster spot as of right now, but it is a new regime for Tennessee. The roster's undergone some changes, and there could be some more between now and the start of the regular season. When it comes to that new regime, which is mostly led by Brian Callahan, we'll count and include Rand Carthon. I know it's his second year, but he also probably has some more power with Mike Vrabel now gone. What is your confidence in this current regime? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comments section. We begin with the quarterback. That is Malik Willis, since they're not going to cut Will Levis anytime soon. I am very curious how the new quarterback rules impact how teams manage the roster. Could you see teams choose to carry 2 players on the 53-man roster because you can now promote that third emergency quarterback from the practice squad? Could Tennessee get Malik Willis down to the practice squad after he hasn't looked very good when he's had chances to play previously? He's pretty cheap, just a $1.41 million cap hit. Whether you cut him after June 1st or at this, which is unlikely before June 1st, you'd save a good portion of that. Will Levis obviously is the future for Tennessee. That's the plan. That's why they hired Brian Callahan, to maximize him. Mason Rudolph was signed to be the veteran backup. I think that puts Willis in the quarterback 3 spot. The career numbers for Willis, look, they're just not very good. And I am very curious if you can develop, I'll group it under the processing. It's not necessarily just processing, but there are times where it's like, dude, you got to take the guy that's open. And this was on film at Liberty. It was a big reason why I think Mike Vrabel didn't like him that much times. He didn't take the easy stuff, and he would try to do more improv than he needed to, and you got to just execute the offense sometimes. And coaches don't like when that stuff doesn't happen. I think that was a big issue for Willis early on in his career so far at Tennessee. So what would you do with him? K for you want to keep him. C for you're done. You want to cut him. Head down to the comments section and let me know. K for keep. C for cut. Rashad Weaver is next on the list. A player I did like coming out of Pitt. If you guys recall my earlier years doing the Titans Today videos. Weaver flashed in 2022. I'm like, okay, big time breakout year coming from that perspective. He was MIA for much of 2023. That's an issue. As in the final year of his contract, he'd save $1.06 million of his 2024 cap, which is just $1.22 million there, by the way. Which version of Weaver shows up this season? Is it the 2021 or 2023 versions? He barely played in 2021. That hardly counts, frankly. Is it the 2023 version where he just wasn't nearly as impactful as he needed to be? Is it the 7 TFL, 5.5 sack guy in 2022? If it's the 2022 version, I'm not cutting him. But the Titans have options at defensive end, edge rusher. Harold Landry's back. Arden Key is there. I like Caleb Murphy as a UDFA. Jalen Hare I thought was a really good 7th-round pick out of Michigan. You could carry just those 4 if you wanted to. So what the future looks like for Rashad Weaver, we'll see. I think for a lot of the guys on this list with the new regime in place coaching staff-wise, a chance to start fresh, showcase your abilities. But the previous investment doesn't matter as much because this wasn't the guys, the group of the front office head coach decision makers that drafted and or signed you. So name a player who you think gets cut. Focus on some of the more notable names. No one cares when the backup punter gets cut, assuming someone's healthy, or the backup kicker gets cut. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. I put Luke Gifford on here over some of the other inside linebackers on the roster because of the money involved here. $2.16 million cap hit. Tennessee would save $1.9 million of that if they cut him. He is mostly a special teamer. I'd argue he's a pretty solid special teamer. And with the way the rules are changing, maybe that makes it more valuable. Maybe Tennessee still decides, he had 6 tackles for us last year. He played in 11 games. That's kind of who he is to an extent. He's like the last linebacker on your 53-man roster. Maybe they don't view that as a priority, and the $2.16 million cap hit versus $1 million ends up being the deciding factor. Tennessee has options at inside linebacker as well. They signed Kenneth Murray. We'll see how that one plays out. He does worry me. Jack Gibbons was a nice surprise last year. Cedric Gray and James Williams, 2 draft picks. I didn't necessarily love what Tennessee did overall. Going sweat super really kind of surprised me. But I see the vision at inside linebacker. James Williams, Cedric Gray, I think are both best when they're kept clean, like most inside linebackers are. I had some issues when they weren't kept clean. But when you got Jeffrey Simmons and Javonte Sweat up front, they'll be kept clean. So I see the vision for Tennessee. I think both those guys should make the roster. Otis Reese IV has some value there. I don't know if you end up needing to find a way to keep Luke Gifford on this roster. I think that you are in good enough shape beyond that to not have to worry about it. Plus, you're really hoping that this time around the draft pick you spent on the inside linebacker works out after the unfortunate, call it what it was, Monty Rice disaster. Let's go to the offensive line. I'll put Dillon Radunz on here, who has been the draw of the ire in years past. Now, for the offensive linemen we discuss on today's show, a pretty common theme. They could find a starting spot. It wouldn't even shock me. But if Bill Callahan gets his hands on him and goes, I can't work with this, which I think is a possibility, could move on. Radunz, relative to the start of his career, the draft investment there, I'd argue has been a little bit of a disappointment. I thought he was better in 2023. I do think he showed some more promise, which, again, that bar, I would argue, was pretty damned low early on in his career. But I thought he did show more promise this past season in Tennessee. I still need to see better growth as a pass protector, but I do think he took a pretty significant, sizable jump as a run blocker. He kind of bounced around right tackle, played some left guard as well. I thought some left tackle too. I thought looked at his best on the right side of the offensive line. Maybe that's his home as we move forward. But because of the savings involved, and it is surprise cut candidates, I did want to mention him. I also got to mention the guy above him. The depth chart is so wonky at this time. We'll see what happens. Don't read too much into it. Nicholas Petit-Frere. He could start at right tackle like he did at times in 2022 and 2023. Or maybe Bill Callahan decides to nope him out. There are savings, $1.2 million cut after June 1st of his $1.44 million cap charge. I don't really know how much you can read into what he did this past season. To be clear, he was terrible. All of it was bad. 3 sacks, 5 hits. That's 11 total pressures. He got beat like once every 10 snaps. It's an unacceptable figure for an NFL football player on the offensive line. He was better in 2022. He dealt with the gambling suspension in 2023. Maybe Bill Callahan can get the most out of him, but I don't necessarily think these guys, despite being top 100 draft picks, top 70 draft picks, are clear-cut, locked-in starters in the same way like Lloyd Cushenberry and Nicholas Petit-Frere and J.C. Latham are. If you could only keep one, who would it be? DR for Dillon Radunz, NPF for Nicholas Petit-Frere. Sound off in the comment section of today's video. I would argue Hassan Haskins is probably RB3 right now on this roster. He had the assault charges dropped in September last year, didn't play due to injury. Still faces a fight for a roster spot because I think there are some intriguing players on the back end of this Titans depth chart for a team that might only need to carry 3 players. $1.16 million owed this year. I could save a big portion of that if they chose to cut him. Haskins has not played very much. 15 career games, under 4 yards a carry. You also don't want to read too much into that sample size because more often than not, it's not like they're high-quality rush attempts, right? It's not like it's, 1st and 10 with the score 0-0. It's more often, hey, it's 1st and 10 and the score's 35-10. Guess what they're going to do, Tennessee has, I think, one of the better, more intriguing, explosive 1-2 punches in the backfield in Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. For dynasty purposes, I kind of wish it just would have been Spears, but that's okay. They've got dynamic ability there. Hassan Haskins, I think, could be beat out by either Julius Chestnut, and I would not sleep on Dylan Johnson. I think his third down value makes him a very intriguing RB3 piece. Now, we are trying to continue to grow Titans today. I know that the hosts have shuffled out a couple times here. My goal is to give you guys at least a couple videos a week, despite all the other chaos we got going on here at Chat Sports, because I like talking about the Titans. It's fun for me. So hit that sub button for more free videos. Now, if you have been subscribed for a while, you probably know how I feel about Caleb Farley. I loved him coming out of Virginia Tech. The medical red flags were so terrifying for me, and they've been even worse in the NFL. And I feel genuinely bad for Caleb Farley, the football player, and the human being, which I think most of us do. He's gone through a lot of shit over the past couple years, and I just want him to have a normal offseason and healthy season and showcase the raw talent. The talent is there. I am convinced of it. And I don't know, though, if it's ever going to materialize. And I think Tennessee has adopted, I think it's the proper mindset of, we just can't trust him. That to stay healthy, to be available, anything we get is gravy. His $4.29 million base salary is fully guaranteed. So I'm not sure what the wording of the contract labeling is, or if there's any, like, he signs for $1 million somewhere else, Tennessee saves that. Maybe there's some of that in there. Offset language is what it's called. But Tennessee's not banking on him to start this year. They have Chidobe Awuzie, who knows the Brian Callahan pretty well. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed, who frankly should probably be CB1 on the list, if we're being honest. Roger McCreary's the nickel. I'll change that in the future, by the way. Caleb Farley, we'll see. Trey Avery, Tay Gowan, also got a couple years ago in the draft. Jarvis Brownlee can do some inside-outside stuff. So I don't want to be out on Caleb Farley, but we're kind of running out of chances here. So do you still believe in him? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comments.